how's it going today?
It's been a good conference. I mean, we've had a pretty tough year. We had the Electoral Commission trying to close us down over the course of the summer, but I think you see from the attendance here, and particularly from the sort of quality of speakers that we've had. I mean, people from members of the House of Lords who are now UKIP through to Tim Congdon, that there's some real quality, there's some real weight behind this party, and yes, of course, we want Britain to leave the European Union and get back to running our own country. But the thing about this conference is we're beginning to produce a blueprint for how an independent Britain could and should be run.
So what would you say the major announcements have been?
Well, the big announcement is that there are 17 policy groups up and running, and they're beginning to get policy out into the public arena. And the one that we've really talked about at this conference is immigration, where we were the party that voted against Eastern European countries joining with total free movement of peoples. We did so fearing there'd be a real flood. There has been a flood. In fact, it's been bigger than we even thought. And because of the pressure on our social services, and because of the increasing tensions between the different communities living in this country, what we've said is, look, this is crazy. If people want to come and work in the UK, that's fine. Let's have a proper work permit scheme. But let's stop absolute mass immigration for the next 5 years. Let's work out who's living here legally, who's living here illegally, and then let's have an immigration policy based on a point system, based on skills, rather like the Australians do.
Okay, that's great. So I mean, you've got the immigration issue, which has always been one of UKIP's main things. What else has been announced?
Well, the other big topical issue is that a couple of UKIP members down in Dorset, in a small village called East Stoke, organised a parish poll using some obscure clause of the 1972 Local Government Act, and this was major national news. The mouse that roared, I think, was the headline that a couple of national newspapers ran with, and they were sort of heroes, guests of honour on the platform yesterday morning. But whilst that may seem to be a very small little issue, it leads in very neatly to what we believe, and what we believe is there is a political class in this country. We have three parties. They're indistinguishable from each other. They look the same, they sound the same, they don't offer the electorate any real choice, and what we're pushing very hard at this conference as a policy that we've had before but we're renewing and reinvigorating is we believe that there should be an element of direct democracy in this country whereby, both at local and at national level, if 5% of the electorate sign a validated petition for something, they should be granted a referendum. And I think that's the only way we're ever going to stop a political class imposing their will on us.
Very good. Finally, the EU Constitutional Treaty, the Reform Treaty, whatever you want to call it. Now, obviously, we know that various European leaders have said it's 90% the same, 94% the same, whatever. Whereas our government's obviously pushing the idea that it's not the same at all, and the quote they keep using is they now drop the constitutional concept. What would be your answer to that? Why is it the same as the Constitution?
Well, it's very simple, isn't it? They're very worried, the British government, that the C word causes offence. I know the C word crops up on Devil's Kitchen quite regularly, so perhaps this is fairly appropriate. So what they've done is they've dropped the C word, thinking, well, that's okay, it won't offend anybody. So the first sentence says the constitutional elements have been dropped. All that they've done is they've got rid of the flag and they've got rid of the anthem from the treaty itself. But given that they exist anyway, that doesn't make any difference. This thing is 96% the same as the old one. The old one, there were 61 areas in which Britain lost the veto. In the new version, there are 62 areas in which Britain loses the veto, so it's nonsense. And I must say, I think that politics in Britain over the last 10, 15, 20 years has fallen increasingly into contempt. One of the main reasons that people don't vote, it isn't because they're apathetic, it's because they feel the absolute loathing for politicians who lie to them. This government was elected on a manifesto to give us a referendum on this thing. They should honour that commitment, and if they don't, politics falls yet further into public contempt.
Well, obviously, your humble devil is with you on the line, politicians. So, what next? What do you want to do for the next year? What's the things you want to achieve for the next year for UKIP?
Well, I mean, let's see what happens in the next 48 hours. I mean, if we have a snap general election, then we've got a fair bit to do. In a short space of time, I've made no bones about it over the course of the last few days, that because of this Electoral Commission case having such a debilitating effect on the party over the course of the summer, that we really are not ready to fight a general election, which is a frank admission. Mark you, the Conservatives aren't ready either. I'm sure Labour aren't. You know, and there are hundreds of seats that haven't yet adopted candidates. So let's see with that. But really, we're gearing up. We're going to have a series of hundreds of public meetings right across the United Kingdom, led by our MEPs, focusing, using the treaty as a focus to try and get the truth out to people, because still there are millions of Brits that don't realise that 75% of our laws aren't made in the British government, aren't made in Westminster, but are made in Brussels, and we simply have to obey. So we're going to go and do that, and we're going to get ourselves prepared for the next European elections. They're in less than 2 years' time. Now, in 2004, we got 16% of the national vote. We came second, beating the Liberal Democrats and beating Labour in virtually half of England. And that surprised the political establishment, and what I want us to do this time is to absolutely frighten the pants off them.
Thank you very much. And finally, one more question. As you know, I'm a big supporter of libertarianism in general. Would you describe UKIP or the UKIP's instincts as being libertarian? Some people see it sometimes, especially of the immigration issues, being somewhat authoritarian. And I think there's a big, especially in the blogosphere, the libertarian voice is a very, very strong voice.
This is the only party in the United Kingdom that is prepared to stand up and shout and fight for genuine libertarian values, and that's been a theme that we've seen through speech after speech after speech at this conference. You know, we very firmly say that if you want to hunt foxes, ride fast motorbikes, smoke cigarettes in pubs, that's your business and not the business of government.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much.
Thank you.